When did you realize the bride's mother was jealous of her own daughter's wedding? Call it spidey senses. But when I saw Sheila's mom huddled over the trunk of her car, constantly looking over her shoulder, I knew there was something in that trunk she was hiding. Looking back now, I'm happy I trusted my gut. I pulled out my phone and quickly snapped a picture of her shoving things from the trunk into a duffel bag before slamming it shut. "Hey girls," I texted the bridesmaid group chat with the photo attached. "Anyone else think this duffel bag has a weird shape to it?" Within seconds, my phone exploded with replies. "That's so sketchy. Is that what I think it is in that bag? Oh God, I saw something weird earlier too. Let's meet in the bridal suite in 10 minutes, the maid of honor Mary texted back. We gathered in the suite while the bride Sheila was busy getting her hair done downstairs. Mary entered the room with a grim expression on her face. Earlier, her phone was open and I spotted this. Her hands shook as she showed us a screenshot of a list, but not just any list. A sabotage checklist to make sure Sheila's wedding would end in a disaster. The entire thing made my blood run cold. Why would she want to ruin her own daughter's wedding? Mary asked, and nobody seemed to have an answer. Until Jenny, Sheila's sister, opened her mouth. "You don't understand what Mom's been like during wedding planning. Every decision Sheila made, Mom complained it wasn't what she would have chosen. Every vendor meeting, Mom tried to make it about herself. She literally told Sheila last week that she was being selfish for not letting Mom help plan more." We all looked at each other, and the same realization dawned on us. Sheila's mom was an attention seeker and couldn't stand that her daughter was getting the spotlight. "We're going to find out what's in that duffel bag and stop her," I said. And suddenly everyone was talking at once with a plan coming together. We had 3 hours to stop multiple sabotage attempts and a duffel bag to find. The first crisis hit during the final venue setup. I saw the florist bringing in boxes of black roses and intercepted her at the entrance. "There's been a mistake. Those aren't the flowers we ordered." The florist looked confused and checked her phone. The bride's mother called yesterday and said the bride wanted to change them. I explained to her about the sabotage, and I was surprised to see her smile. I had a feeling something strange was going on. But don't worry. I brought the original white roses too. The next sabotage attempt came right before the ceremony when Mary spotted Sheila's ex-boyfriend pacing around the entrance. Mary pulled aside 2 other groomsmen and formed a wall. "You need to leave," Mary said firmly. "But Sheila invited me," he protested, holding up his phone with a text from the mother's number. He looked at her serious expression. "Wait, is this? It can't be. Did her mom try to pull this again? She did the same thing to us years ago. I really thought she'd changed." He apologized and swiftly left. Crisis 2 averted. I handled the cake situation myself by stationing myself in the kitchen. Sure enough, she switched out the sugar for salt. Just before the chef poured it into the food, I rushed over and grabbed his wrist. "Wait, that's salt." He stared back at me with wide eyes. He took the bottle and poured it into his hand. A quick lick and he understood just how close we were to a disaster. But that was it. Every crisis that was on the list was stopped. The only thing left was to find out what was in that duffel bag. Just 15 minutes before the ceremony began, Mary sent SOS in our group chat. My blood went cold. Mary only ever sent SOS when something was extremely urgent. She hadn't sent it today even once. Guys, I need you to meet me in the bathroom right now." We rushed over and found her panicking and hyperventilating. "I found out what's in the duffel bag, guys." She turned her phone screen towards us, looking like she was trying not to cry. Her phone showed a video Mary had taken from a crack in the doorway. It was worse than any of us could have imagined. After watching it, I grabbed Jenny and sprinted to the hallway immediately. The bride's mom was there, now standing in front of a mirror, wearing a white lace wedding gown that matched Sheila's exactly. That's what was in the duffel bag. And when she pulled out a tiara with a small veil and matching jewelry from the duffel bag, we couldn't take it anymore. We burst into the door. "What do you think you're doing?" Jenny hissed. "I'm joining my daughter for her special moment," she said with a sick smile. "Someone needs to share the spotlight with her." "We're not going to let you do that," Jenny said, blocking the door. The mother viciously grabbed Jenny's hair and pushed her out of the way, walking straight for the side entrance. "Oh no, you don't!" I screamed, yanking the tiara from her hair. "You little beach!" she screeched back. Mary pulled out her phone showing the sabotage checklist. "We know everything. The flowers, the X, the cake, all of it." That's when Sheila's grandmother came out of the ceremony and took one look at her daughter in the white dress, and her face went hard as stone. "Leave this venue immediately. You will not ruin your daughter's day just because you never got a wedding of your own." The mother's face scrunched up. She held her hand up to hit her. A security guard grabbed Sheila's mother's wrist mid-swing and pulled her arm down to her side. The grandmother didn't flinch or step back. Her face stayed hard as stone while she stared at her daughter. I moved immediately to stand between them along with Jenny and Mary, forming a wall of bridesmaids blocking any path Sheila's mother might take toward her mother. Iris Meadows appeared from around the corner with 2 more security guards in tow, her heels clicking rapidly against the floor. She took one look at Sheila's mother in the wedding dress, and her expression shifted from professional concern to barely contained anger. Iris walked straight up to our group and positioned herself next to the grandmother. She pulled out her phone and held it up, showing a recording app already running. Her voice came out calm, but firm when she asked if we wanted to file an assault report right now. The grandmother shook her head and said she just wanted her daughter removed from the property. Sheila's mother tried to jerk her arm free from the security guard's grip, but he held firm without hurting her. The sound of rapid footsteps made us all turn toward the main hallway. The groom appeared around the corner, his tie slightly loose and his face flushed like he'd been running. He froze when he saw Sheila's mother standing there in the white lace wedding dress that matched his bride's gown exactly. His face went completely pale and his mouth opened, but no words came out for several seconds. Mary stepped forward and started explaining everything in quick, clipped sentences. She told him about the sabotage checklist, the black roses, the ex-boyfriend, the salt in the cake mix, and now this duplicate wedding dress. The groom's hands clenched into fists at his sides while he listened. Security kept holding Sheila's mother at arm's length as she tried to interrupt Mary's explanation with protests about being the mother of the bride. When Mary finished talking, the groom pulled out his phone with shaking hands. He typed out a text message and showed it to Iris before sending it. The message told Sheila he needed 5 more minutes before the ceremony could start. Iris nodded her approval and gestured for the security guards to follow her. Iris took charge by gripping Sheila's mother's elbow and steering her down the hallway toward the venue offices. The 2 security guards flanked them on either side as they walked. Sheila's mother's white dress dragged slightly on the carpet and the veil bounced with each forced step. Iris spoke in a voice loud enough for all of us to hear as they moved away. She explained that Sheila's mother had violated multiple venue policies, including harassment of guests and attempted assault. The locked office door opened and Iris guided Sheila's mother inside while explaining she could be charged with trespassing if she tried to enter the ceremony space. Sheila's mother screamed that this was her daughter's wedding and she had every right to be there. Her voice echoed down the hallway, making several guests poke their heads out of the ceremony room to see what was happening. Iris remained completely calm when she stated that only Sheila's name appeared on the contract. She added that the bride had full authority to determine who could and couldn't attend her wedding. One security guard positioned himself directly outside the office door, while the other moved to monitor the nearest exit. Iris locked the door from the outside and pocketed the key before walking back toward our group. We gathered in the hallway about 20 feet from where the confrontation happened. Mary looked at each of us with an expression that said we needed to make a critical decision immediately. She said Sheila deserved to know everything right now before walking down the aisle. Her voice came out steady, but her hands were still shaking from the adrenaline. Jenny crossed her arms and argued the opposite. She worried that telling her sister about their mother wearing a duplicate wedding dress would completely destroy Sheila's ability to enjoy her own ceremony. The groom stood between them, listening carefully to both arguments. I pointed out that if something else happened during the ceremony, and Sheila found out later we'd kept this from her, she might never forgive us. The grandmother spoke up from where she'd sat down on a nearby bench. She said her granddaughter was stronger than we thought, and hiding the truth would be worse than delivering bad news. Mary pulled up the video on her phone showing Sheila's mother in the wedding dress, and asked if we really thought Sheila wouldn't notice her mother was missing from the ceremony. Several other bridesmaids nodded in agreement. The groom held up his hand to stop the debate. He said we needed to tell Sheila a simplified version now so she wouldn't be blindsided if another problem emerged during the ceremony. His voice sounded firm despite the stress showing on his face. He volunteered to be the one to deliver the news since he could provide immediate emotional support. He explained that Sheila needed to hear it from him, so she'd know they were handling this together as a team. Jenny wiped tears from her eyes but nodded in agreement. The groom asked us to give him 10 minutes alone with Sheila in the bridal suite. He promised to help her decide how to proceed and whether she wanted to delay the ceremony or push forward. Mary offered to come with him, but he shook his head. He said this needed to be a private conversation between him and his bride. Iris returned from posting the security guard and told the groom she'd make sure no one interrupted them. He thanked her and headed toward the bridal suite with his shoulders squared like he was preparing for battle. While the groom walked toward the bridal suite, I pulled Iris aside near the hallway window. I asked about additional security measures for the ceremony itself, now that we knew Sheila's mother was willing to get physical. Iris pulled out her phone and opened a venue map showing all the entrances and exits. She pointed to each one while explaining her plan. 2 guards would monitor the main entrance where guests entered. Another guard would stay posted outside the locked office where Sheila's mother was contained. A 4th guard would patrol the exterior perimeter in case Sheila's mother somehow escaped and tried to enter through an outside door. Iris handed me a business card with her direct cell number written on the back. She told me to call or text immediately if I spotted any suspicious activity during the ceremony. I asked what would happen if Sheila's mother tried to force her way into the ceremony space. Iris said the guards had instructions to physically remove her from the property and call the police if necessary. She added that she'd already documented everything with photos and witness statements in case legal action became necessary later. Valerie Singh approached me while I was still talking with Iris. The photographer had her camera hanging around her neck and a concerned expression on her face. She said she'd overheard parts of the confrontation and wanted to know if she should document the duplicate wedding dress as evidence. I felt a wave of relief that someone else was thinking practically about documentation. I told her that was smart thinking and asked her to photograph everything, including the tiara, veil, and all the contents of the duffel bag. Valerie said she'd already taken a few shots during the confrontation but wanted permission before doing a full evidence session. Iris immediately agreed and offered to escort Valerie to the locked office where the dress and accessories were stored. She unlocked the door carefully while the security guard kept watch. Valerie stepped inside and started photographing the wedding dress from multiple angles. She captured close-ups of the lace pattern, the exact style of the neckline, and the way the veil attached to the tiara. I watched through the doorway as she photographed the empty duffel bag and the jewelry Sheila's mother had planned to wear. Valerie worked quickly and professionally, treating it like a crime scene photo session. The grandmother sat heavily on the hallway bench and gestured for Jenny and me to join her. We sat on either side while she stared at the carpet for a long moment. Her hands were folded in her lap, and her face looked tired in a way that went beyond just today's events. She admitted she'd watched her daughter's jealousy-poisoned family events for 30 years. Her voice came out quiet but steady as she explained the history. Sheila's mother never had a real wedding herself after a quick courthouse marriage that ended in divorce within 2 years. The grandmother said Sheila's mother spent the next 3 decades living vicariously through other people's celebrations. She'd tried to take over Jenny's high school graduation party and her college graduation dinner. She'd attempted to plan the grandmother's birthday parties without asking what she actually wanted. Every family event became a battle over control and attention. The grandmother explained that Sheila's mother's behavior had gotten worse as Sheila's wedding approached. She'd called the grandmother multiple times crying about how Sheila was being selfish and ungrateful. She'd sent long text messages listing everything she'd sacrificed as a mother. The grandmother said she'd tried setting boundaries, but Sheila's mother always found ways around them. Mary's phone buzzed and she pulled it out to check the notification. Her eyes widened and she held up the screen to show us new text messages. Sheila's mother was sending messages to distant relatives claiming we'd physically attacked her and dragged her away from her daughter's wedding. The messages painted Sheila's mother as a victim who just wanted to support Sheila on her special day. Mary scrolled through multiple texts showing Sheila's mother was working through her entire contact list. Several relatives had already responded with shocked reactions and questions about what really happened. Mary quickly took screenshots of every message while they were still coming in. I pulled out my own phone and forwarded everything to Iris as additional documentation of the harassment pattern. Jenny started composing a group message to family members explaining the actual situation. She wrote that her mother had attempted to wear a wedding dress to the ceremony and had tried to assault their grandmother when confronted. Mary added photos of the duplicate dress to the message as proof. We sent it to about 20 relatives who needed to know the truth before Sheila's mother's version spread too far. The bridal suite door opened and the groom emerged exactly 10 minutes after he'd gone inside. He looked directly at our group and gave us a clear thumbs-up signal. We all exhaled in relief and stood up from our various positions around the hallway. The groom walked over and spoke quietly so nearby guests wouldn't overhear. He explained that Sheila had cried for about 3 minutes after hearing what her mother tried to do. Then she'd gotten angry and thrown a decorative pillow across the room. After that, she'd wiped her eyes, fixed her makeup, and made a decision. Sheila told him she refused to let her mother ruin this day no matter what had happened. The groom said his bride wanted the ceremony to proceed immediately with only one change to the original plan. She wanted her grandmother moved to the front row where her mother was supposed to sit. Everything else would continue exactly as planned. He asked if we were all ready to make this wedding happen despite the chaos. We nodded and started moving toward our positions for the processional. I spotted Sheila walking toward us from the bridal suite with her robe still on and her makeup looking a bit smudged around the eyes. She stopped right in front of our group and looked directly at me. She asked if she could see the duplicate dress with her own eyes because she needed to understand what her mother had planned. Iris immediately nodded and gestured for Sheila to follow her down the hallway toward the locked office where security had stored all the evidence. The rest of us stood there watching them walk away together while Jenny chewed on her thumbnail nervously. Iris unlocked the office door and held it open for Sheila to enter first. Through the doorway, I could see the white lace wedding gown hanging on a coat rack exactly where Valerie had photographed it earlier. Sheila walked right up to the dress and reached out to touch the fabric with one hand. She stood there for what felt like forever, just staring at it without saying anything. Then she turned around and told Iris she wanted the dress donated to a thrift store after today was over because she refused to let it sit in storage as a reminder of what her mother tried to do. Iris wrote something down in her phone and promised to handle the donation personally within the next week. The officiant appeared at the end of the hallway looking worried and checking his watch repeatedly. He approached our group and asked if we were ready to proceed with the ceremony or if we needed to postpone to another day given all the delays and complications. Sheila stepped forward before anyone else could answer and stated firmly that the wedding was happening right now. She explained that she only wanted to make one change to the ceremony plan to avoid giving her mother any more chances to cause problems. The officiant pulled out his ceremony notes and asked what modification she had in mind. Sheila said she wanted to eliminate anything that involved her mother, including any special moments or acknowledgments that had been planned. Kiara Lombard walked over carrying her event coordinator clipboard and tablet. She suggested we could eliminate the traditional mother of the bride moments, including the candle lighting ceremony and the special mother-daughter dance at the reception. Sheila agreed immediately without even pausing to think about it. Then she asked if her grandmother could sit in the front row where her mother was supposed to be seated during the ceremony. Kiara made notes on her tablet and confirmed that she would have the seating chart updated and the programs adjusted to remove all references to the mother of the bride role. The grandmother walked over and hugged Sheila tightly, while telling her she would be honored to sit in that seat and represent the family properly. Kiara checked her watch and announced we had exactly 8 minutes before the new ceremony start time. That's when we all heard the loud pounding coming from down the hallway where the locked office was located. Sheila's mother's voice carried through the building as she demanded to be released immediately. One of the security guards walked toward the noise while speaking into his radio. He stopped outside the locked door and informed Sheila's mother through the wood that she had 2 options. She could leave the building voluntarily right now and avoid any further legal complications, or she could be escorted off the property by security with a formal trespass warning that would be documented and filed. The pounding stopped for a moment, and then Sheila's mother started screaming even louder than before. Sheila's mother shouted that she was going to call the police and report all of us for kidnapping and false imprisonment. Iris actually laughed out loud at that threat and pulled out her own phone while walking toward the locked office. She spoke loudly enough for Sheila's mother to hear through the door and calmly explained that she had multiple witnesses to everything that happened today. Iris listed the evidence she had collected, including video footage of Sheila's mother in the duplicate wedding dress and photographic documentation of the sabotage checklist. She added that Sheila's mother should consider herself extremely lucky that the bride hadn't decided to press charges yet for harassment, trespassing, and attempted assault. Iris finished by saying that if Sheila's mother called the police, she would be happy to show them all the evidence and let them decide who should be charged with a crime. The screaming from inside the office stopped completely after that. Mary grabbed my arm and said we needed to do a final check of the ceremony space to make sure everything was secure. The other bridesmaids and I rushed into the main ceremony room and started walking through each row of chairs. We checked faces and looked for anyone who seemed out of place or suspicious. Near the back of the room, I spotted 2 women, who I recognized as Sheila's mother's friends from some family photos Jenny had shown us earlier. I walked up to them with my best polite smile and explained that there had been a seating error. I told them they needed to move to the reception-only guest section since they weren't on the official ceremony attendance list. One of them started to argue, but Mary appeared beside me and showed them something on her phone. They both stood up immediately and walked toward the exit without another word. Mary later told me she had shown them a photo of Sheila's mother being escorted away by security. Mary's phone buzzed with multiple notifications all at once. She looked at the screen and her face went pale. She held up her phone to show me a mass text message that Sheila's mother had somehow managed to send to the entire guest list about 5 minutes ago. The message claimed the wedding was canceled due to a family emergency and everyone should go home. Mary and I looked at each other and then sprinted toward where the DJ was setting up his equipment. We explained the situation and asked him to make an immediate announcement. The DJ grabbed his microphone and told all the guests that the ceremony was proceeding exactly as planned. He said they should ignore any contradictory messages they may have received and stay in their seats because the bride would be walking down the aisle in just a few minutes. Several guests pulled out their phones looking confused, but they all stayed seated. Jenny ran up to us holding her phone and breathing hard. She said she had just done a quick check of social media and found that Sheila's mother had posted on all her personal accounts. The post claimed that Sheila was making a terrible mistake, and the groom was hiding something serious. Jenny showed us the screenshots she had already taken of every post. I pulled out my phone and added the screenshots to our growing evidence folder that we had been building all day. Jenny reported each post for harassment and blocked her mother's accounts on every platform. Mary suggested we should also document the exact timestamps of each post to show the pattern of harassment continuing even after Sheila's mother was removed from the venue. I checked my watch and realized we only had 3 minutes left before the processional was supposed to start. I positioned myself near the side entrance that Sheila's mother had originally tried to use when she was wearing the duplicate wedding dress. The security guard who was stationed there gave me a nod and held up his walkie-talkie. He explained that he was connected to the entire security team who were monitoring all the building exits. He said they would alert everyone immediately if Sheila's mother tried to approach the venue again from any direction. I thanked him and kept my eyes on the door while my heart pounded in my chest. The grandmother walked slowly toward the front of the ceremony space, wearing a subtle smile on her face. Several older relatives turned in their seats and started whispering to each other when they saw her heading for the front row. One aunt leaned over and asked loudly why she was sitting in the mother spot instead of her usual seat. The grandmother sat down gracefully and stated that she was honored to represent the family today. Her tone made it absolutely clear that she wasn't going to provide any further explanation or entertain any more questions about the seating arrangement. The relatives exchanged glances but turned back around to face the altar without saying anything else. The music started with a soft piano melody that filled the ceremony space. The groomsmen began walking down the aisle in pairs, moving slightly faster than they did during rehearsal yesterday. I watched from my position near the side entrance as each pair reached the front and took their places. The groom stood at the altar, adjusting his tie 3 times in 10 seconds. His eyes kept darting toward the bridal suite entrance like he expected something to go wrong at any moment. I checked my phone one more time to make sure Sheila's mother hadn't somehow sent another mass text to the guests. Nothing new appeared on the screen, so I tucked it back into the small pocket hidden in my bridesmaid dress. The coordinator gave me a small nod, indicating it was my turn to walk. I picked up my bouquet and started down the aisle at the practiced pace. My eyes scanned every face in the seated rows looking for anyone who might be working with Sheila's mother. The guests all looked happy and relaxed with no sign they knew about the duplicate wedding dress or the sabotage checklist. An older woman in the third row smiled at me, and I forced myself to smile back. My stomach felt tight with worry, but I kept my face calm. I reached the altar and took my position on the left side. From this spot, I had a clear view of the main entrance and the side door where we stopped Sheila's mother earlier. Mary started her walk down the aisle next, carrying her bouquet in her left hand. Her right hand stayed pressed against the side of her dress where I knew she had tucked her phone. She walked slowly and deliberately, scanning the room just like I had done. When she reached the altar, she positioned herself at the front of the bridesmaid line. Her angle gave her a perfect view of both entrance points and the hallway leading to the locked office where security was keeping watch. The music shifted to a different melody, and everyone in the room stood up and turned toward the back. Sheila appeared at the entrance with her father holding her arm. Even from this distance, I could see her eyes looked slightly red and puffy under the professional makeup, but her chin stayed up and her shoulders were straight. She wore the white lace gown that matched the one Sheila's mother tried to wear, and it looked absolutely perfect on her. The guests made small gasping sounds, and several people pulled out their phones to take pictures. The photographer moved quickly to capture Sheila's first step down the aisle. Her father walked beside her at a steady pace, and I saw him squeeze her hand gently. They made it about halfway down the aisle when a muffled shouting sound came from somewhere deep in the building. It sounded like Sheila's mother screaming words I couldn't make out clearly. The band immediately increased their volume, drowning out the distant noise. The guests didn't seem to notice anything wrong as they watched Sheila continue her walk toward the altar. My hands gripped my bouquet tighter, and I saw Mary's fingers twitch toward her phone. Sheila's face stayed calm and focused on the groom waiting for her at the front. The shouting faded away as she took the final steps. The groom reached out and took both of Sheila's hands in his when she arrived at the altar. He leaned in close and whispered something I couldn't hear. Whatever he said made her smile genuinely for the first time since I saw her in the bridal suite. The guests sat back down and the room went quiet except for a few people sniffling. The officiant stepped forward and began speaking about how love perseveres through all challenges. His words felt perfectly timed given everything that happened in the last hour. My phone buzzed against my leg, and I carefully shifted my bouquet to pull it out just enough to read the screen. The text from Iris said Sheila's mother attempted to push past security at the main entrance, and they were now escorting her completely off the property. I caught Mary's eye and gave a small nod. She passed the signal to Jenny, who let out a tiny breath of relief. The immediate threat was gone from the building. The officiant continued with the opening remarks while I went back to watching every entrance and exit like a security guard on high alert. A few guests in the middle rows kept glancing at me with curious expressions. They probably thought I was just a really attentive bridesmaid, instead of someone actively protecting the ceremony from sabotage. The ceremony moved through traditional readings and the exchange of intentions. I kept my eyes moving between the doors and the couple at the altar. My feet started to hurt from standing so still in heels, but I didn't dare shift my weight or relax my guard. The officiant reached the part where he asked if anyone objected to the marriage. The room went completely silent for 3 long seconds. I held my breath, waiting for Sheila's mother to somehow burst through a door or window. Mary's hand moved closer to her phone. Jenny's shoulders tensed. The silence stretched, and then the officiant continued speaking. Sheila's shoulders dropped slightly, and I saw her take a deeper breath. The moment passed without disaster. The groom started his vows, and his voice stayed steady and clear. He talked about choosing your family and standing together against any obstacle that tries to come between you. Several guests pulled tissues from their purses and dabbed at their eyes. Sheila squeezed his hand so tight her knuckles turned white. I realized he was carefully acknowledging what happened today, without actually telling 200 people about the sabotage attempts and the duplicate wedding dress. His words let Sheila know he understood and supported her while keeping the ceremony focused on their commitment instead of the drama. Sheila stepped forward when the officiant nodded at her, and she pulled out a small card from inside her bouquet. Her hands shook slightly as she unfolded it and looked at the groom with tears already forming in her eyes. She started reading her vows in a voice that was soft but clear enough for everyone in the room to hear. She talked about choosing to build a life with someone who sees you as an equal partner instead of someone who needs to be controlled or changed. She mentioned trust and how important it is to surround yourself with people who actually want you to be happy instead of people who try to make everything about themselves. Her voice broke a little on that last part, and I saw Jenny pull a tissue from somewhere in her dress and dab at her eyes. The groom squeezed Sheila's hands and smiled at her in a way that made it clear he understood exactly what she was really saying, without her having to spell it out for 200 guests. Sheila finished her vows by promising to always choose their partnership over any outside pressure or drama that tries to come between them. Several people in the audience sniffled and reached for tissues while I kept my eyes moving between the ceremony and the doors. The officiant announced the ring exchange, and the best man stepped forward with the rings on a small pillow. The groom took Sheila's ring first and slid it onto her finger slowly, while saying the traditional words about love and commitment. Sheila took his ring and did the same thing while Valerie moved around them, taking close-up photos of their hands. I watched the photographer zoom in on their fingers and the rings, and I had this weird thought about how those same hands were yanking a tiara off someone's head and pushing people out of the way just 25 minutes ago. Nobody looking at these beautiful photos later would ever know about the chaos that happened right before this moment. Sheila held herself together with so much grace that I felt proud to know her, and also kind of amazed that she wasn't falling apart. Most people would be a complete mess after finding out their mother tried to sabotage their wedding and wear a duplicate dress to steal the spotlight. But Sheila just kept smiling at her groom and focusing on the commitment they were making to each other. My phone buzzed against my leg, and I carefully shifted my bouquet to check the screen without being obvious about it. The text from Iris said Sheila's mother left the property in her car about 3 minutes ago, and security filmed her driving away. They got her license plate number documented in case we need it for a restraining order later. I caught Mary's eye and gave her a tiny nod to let her know the threat was completely gone now. She passed the signal to Jenny, who let out a breath I could see even from several feet away. The officiant raised his hands and started speaking about the power of love and commitment. He said some traditional words about joining two people together in marriage and asked if anyone had any objections. The room went totally silent for about 5 seconds, and I held my breath waiting for something else to go wrong. But nothing happened, and the officiant continued with the final part of the ceremony. He looked at the groom and asked if he took Sheila to be his wife, and the groom said yes in a strong, clear voice. Then he asked Sheila if she took the groom to be her husband, and she said yes, while squeezing his hands so tight her knuckles turned white. The officiant smiled and pronounced them husband and wife, and told the groom he could kiss his bride. They kissed, and the entire room exploded with applause and cheers and people standing up to celebrate. Sheila and the groom turned to face the guests with huge smiles on their faces and started walking back down the aisle together. Unless you were watching super carefully and knew what to look for, you would never guess this bride just survived her mother's attempt to destroy her wedding day. They looked like any other happy couple starting their new life together. The wedding party started following them down the aisle, and I walked next to one of the groomsmen while keeping my eyes on the exits. Jenny caught up to me during the recessional, and we exchanged a look that said everything without needing words. We made it through the ceremony without any public disasters happening in front of all these guests. Now we just needed to get through the reception without Sheila's mother finding some other way to cause chaos from wherever she went, after security kicked her out. The guests started filing out of the ceremony space toward the cocktail area, and I followed the wedding party to a small private room near the venue entrance. Sheila immediately pulled off her veil and turned to hug each of us bridesmaids one at a time. When she got to me, she squeezed tight and whispered thank you for protecting her day. She admitted she was still trying to process everything that happened, but she refused to let her mother's jealousy steal her joy. Seeing her strength and determination made me feel proud to be part of her chosen family, instead of the family she was born into. Mary hugged Sheila next and told her she was the bravest person she knew. Jenny was crying again when Sheila hugged her, and they held each other for a long moment without saying anything. The grandmother appeared in the doorway and walked over to join our private moment. She put her hands on Sheila's shoulders and told her she had never been more proud of her granddaughter's grace and strength. She said Sheila handled an impossible situation with more dignity than most people could manage, and she was honored to be her grandmother. Then she quietly informed us that she already texted several other family members with instructions to block Sheila's mother's number and not engage with any dramatic messages for the rest of the evening. She made it clear that anyone who chose to side with Sheila's mother would not be welcome in Sheila's life going forward. Valerie knocked on the door and stuck her head in to ask if we were ready for family photos. Sheila nodded and started to follow her out, but then stopped and turned back to Valerie. She asked if they could skip the traditional mother-daughter photos and do extra shots with her grandmother instead. Valerie smiled and said that was a perfect idea, and she would adjust the shot list right away. The photo session went smoothly with everyone focusing on celebration, instead of the obvious absence of the mother of the bride. Valerie posed Sheila with her dad, with her grandmother, with the bridesmaids, and with the groom's family. Nobody mentioned Sheila's mother or asked where she was during the photos. After we finished the formal shots, the wedding party headed to cocktail hour, while Sheila and the groom did their couple portraits. I grabbed a drink from the bar and stood near the entrance watching guests mingle and chat. Several people approached me asking where Sheila's mother was and why she wasn't at the ceremony. I started to panic about what to say, but then Jenny appeared next to me and smoothly jumped in. She explained that her mother had a personal emergency and had to leave unexpectedly. She said it with such a straight face that people just nodded sympathetically and moved on to other topics. It was technically true even if the emergency was her own terrible behavior and getting kicked out by security. Mary found me near the appetizer table and pulled out her phone to show me Sheila's mother's social media. She was posting dramatic messages about being excluded from her own daughter's wedding and making herself look like the victim. Mary already screenshotted everything and added it to our evidence folder. We decided not to engage or respond because any attention would just feed into the same behavior that caused this entire mess. Instead, we would document everything and let Sheila decide later if she wanted to pursue legal action. Iris found me by the shrimp cocktail display and pulled me slightly away from the other guests. She kept her voice low while updating me that Sheila's mother called the venue desk 3 separate times in the past hour, demanding to speak with Sheila. Each time the front desk staff told her the bride was unavailable and busy with her celebration. They suggested she respect her daughter's wishes and stop contacting the venue. Iris said the staff handled it perfectly and kept detailed notes of each call, including timestamps, and exactly what Sheila's mother said. I thanked her for the professional way everyone managed the situation, and she squeezed my arm before heading back to coordinate the room flip for dinner service. The DJ's voice boomed through the speakers announcing it was time to move into the main ballroom for the reception. Guests started flowing toward the decorated space while upbeat music played to build energy. I followed the crowd and found my assigned seat at the head table facing the dance floor. The DJ introduced each member of the wedding party one by one, and we walked in to applause and cheers. When he announced Sheila and the groom as Mr. and Mrs. and for the first time, the entire room erupted. They entered holding hands and beaming at everyone. The groom lifted their joined hands in victory, and Sheila laughed with pure joy on her face. Watching them soak up the moment made me realize they were actively choosing to focus on celebration, instead of dwelling on the chaos from earlier. They weren't going to let Sheila's mother steal this experience from them. Dinner service began with servers bringing out the first course while soft background music played. The grandmother stood up with her champagne glass and tapped it gently with a fork. The room quieted down as everyone turned their attention to her. She spoke about watching Sheila grow into a strong and independent woman who knew her own mind. She talked about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who genuinely support your happiness, rather than people who demand attention for themselves. Her voice stayed steady as she said that true family shows up when you need them most, and everyone who matters is right here in this room tonight. Several relatives nodded knowingly at her words, and I caught a few people glancing at the empty mother of the bride seat. The grandmother raised her glass and toasted to Sheila and the groom, building a life based on mutual respect and unconditional love. Everyone clinked glasses and drank while Sheila wiped away happy tears. The groom's parents stood up next holding their champagne flutes. His mother spoke first about how thrilled they were to welcome Sheila into their family officially. She promised they would always treat her with kindness and respect, no matter what challenges came their way. His father added that respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and they were proud to support a marriage built on such a solid base. The way they emphasized the word respect felt deliberate, and I suspected the groom briefed them earlier about what happened with Sheila's mother. They finished their toast by saying Sheila already felt like a daughter to them, and they looked forward to many years of family celebrations together. More clinking glasses and another round of applause filled the room. We were halfway through the main course when Jenny's phone started buzzing on the table next to her plate. She glanced at the screen and immediately hit decline when she saw her mother's name. Within seconds, my phone started ringing, then Mary's phone, then two other bridesmaids at our table. We all looked at each other with the same tired expression as Sheila's mother worked through her contact list, trying to find someone who would answer and listen to whatever story she wanted to tell. I declined the call and set my phone face down on the table. Mary did the same. Jenny silenced hers completely. Mary leaned across the table toward all of us and suggested we make a group decision right now to silence our phones and focus entirely on supporting Sheila through the rest of the night. Everyone agreed immediately. Mary pulled out her phone one last time and typed out a message. She showed it to me before sending, and it stated clearly that continued harassment would result in Sheila pursuing a restraining order through the courts. Then Mary blocked Sheila's mother's number completely and put her phone in her purse. The rest of us followed her lead and either blocked the number or turned off our phones entirely. We went back to eating dinner and watching Sheila laugh with her new husband at the head table. The DJ announced the first dance after dessert was cleared. Sheila and the groom walked onto the empty dance floor holding hands while a slow romantic song started playing. They swayed together with their arms wrapped around each other, and you could see their lips moving the entire time. They were having a whole private conversation right there in front of 200 guests. After the dance ended and everyone applauded, Sheila came over to our table during a break. She told me they spent those 3 minutes reminding each other of all the reasons they were perfect together and why they chose each other. They turned what could have been just a traditional wedding moment into their own private affirmation of their relationship. I hugged her tight and told her I was proud of how strong she was being. The father-daughter dance came next, and Sheila's dad led her onto the floor looking emotional. The DJ smoothly skipped the traditional mother-son dance that would normally follow, and instead invited all guests to join the couple on the dance floor. Within seconds, the floor filled with people dancing and laughing. The missing element barely registered because everyone was too busy having fun to notice the gap in tradition. The energy in the room stayed positive and celebratory, exactly like a wedding reception should feel. Kiara appeared next to me during a quiet moment between songs. She pulled me aside near the bar and said the venue ownership wanted to offer Sheila and the groom a complimentary anniversary dinner next year. She explained it was their way of apologizing for the security situation that allowed Sheila's mother to get as far into the building as she did before being stopped. I thanked her for the generous offer, but pointed out that the venue staff actually handled everything perfectly once they understood what was happening. The security team responded immediately and professionally. The front desk managed multiple harassing phone calls with grace. Every vendor adjusted their plans without complaint. Kiara smiled and said she appreciated my perspective, but they still wanted to do something nice for the couple. Iris joined our conversation by the bar and mentioned she was already working on updating the venue's standard procedures. She planned to add specific questions during initial planning meetings about any family conflicts or concerns the couple might have. Her goal was to prevent future situations where a parent or family member might attempt similar sabotage. She said she was using today's events as a detailed case study for staff training sessions. Every team member would learn the warning signs to watch for and the proper protocols for handling family drama that escalates beyond normal wedding stress. I told her that sounded like a smart approach, and other couples would probably benefit from those proactive conversations. The cake cutting happened about 30 minutes later, and I found myself standing near the dessert table watching Sheila and the groom pose for photos with the knife. I realized I was still scanning the room for threats even though Sheila's mother was gone, and every crisis on her list had been stopped. The DJ announced the cake cutting, and guests gathered around with phones raised to capture the moment. Sheila picked up a small piece of cake on her fork and gently placed it in the groom's mouth, while he smiled and did the same for her. No smashing, no mess, just two people treating each other with respect. Something about that simple moment felt like a victory after everything we'd been through today. The crowd clapped and cheered as they kissed with frosting on their lips. The bouquet toss came next, and all the single women gathered on the dance floor, while Sheila stood at the front with her back turned. Before she threw it, she turned around and made direct eye contact with each of us bridesmaids. Her eyes were still a little red from crying earlier, but she was smiling for real now. She looked at me first, then Jenny, then two other bridesmaids, and finally Mary. It was her way of saying thank you without actually saying the words out loud. She turned back around and tossed the bouquet high into the air. Mary jumped up and caught it with both hands, then immediately held it above her head like she just won a championship trophy. We all screamed and rushed over to hug her while the photographer captured the whole thing. I stepped back from the celebration and watched Sheila return to the dance floor with her new husband. The DJ played an upbeat song, and within seconds the floor filled with guests dancing and laughing. I noticed Sheila in the middle of it all, genuinely smiling and moving to the music. She wasn't forcing it or pretending anymore. Her shoulders were relaxed and she kept throwing her head back, laughing at something one of her college friends said. The groom spun her around and she giggled like she didn't have a care in the world. I realized she was actually enjoying her wedding reception despite everything her mother tried to do to destroy it. That felt like the best possible outcome after the chaos of the last few hours. A slow song started playing and I moved toward the edge of the dance floor to give couples more room. The grandmother appeared next to me and gently touched my arm. She thanked me for trusting my gut about the duffel bag and taking that first photo in the parking lot. She said if I hadn't started the group chat investigation, Sheila's mother would have succeeded in stealing the spotlight and causing permanent damage to her granddaughter. Her voice got quiet when she explained that some wounds take years to heal, and Sheila would have never was forgotten seeing her mother in that white dress walking down the aisle. I hugged her and told her we were just doing what any real family would do. She squeezed my hand and said that was exactly the point. The reception started winding down about an hour later, and Jenny pulled all the bridesmaids together near a quiet corner by the windows. She suggested we create a formal timeline of everything that happened today, while the details were still fresh in our minds. We grabbed our phones and found an empty table away from the music. For the next 20 minutes, we went through every single sabotage attempt in order. I documented the duffel bag photo and the confrontation in the hallway. Mary added the sabotage checklist screenshot and all the text messages from Sheila's mother trying to rally relatives. Jenny wrote down the physical assault attempt against the grandmother with exact times and locations. We included every witness who saw each incident and made notes about what evidence existed for each event. The timeline grew longer and longer as we remembered more details. Mary pulled out her laptop from her bridesmaid emergency bag and started organizing everything into a shared folder. She uploaded all the photos we'd taken throughout the day. The screenshots of Sheila's mother's sabotage list went in first. Then the video Mary recorded of Sheila's mother in the duplicate wedding dress. I sent her my parking lot photo of the duffel bag. Jenny forwarded all the harassing text messages Sheila's mother sent during the reception. Mary created a document with our detailed timeline and added timestamps to every entry. She included Valerie's professional photos of the white dress and tiara that Sheila's mother tried to wear. Each piece of evidence got labeled and organized so Sheila and the groom could access it whenever they felt ready. Mary set the folder permissions so only the bride and groom could view it unless they chose to share it with others. Iris found us at our documentation table and sat down with a folder of her own. She handed us copies of the venue's security footage showing every time Sheila's mother tried to enter the building. The videos showed her attempting to push past the front desk, trying the side entrance, and finally being escorted to her car by security guards. Iris also gave us written statements from 3 different security staff members who witnessed the incidents. Each statement included their name, position, and detailed description of what they saw. The formal incident report from the venue listed every policy violation and documented the decision to remove Sheila's mother from the property. Iris explained that all of this could be used if Sheila decided to pursue legal action or apply for a restraining order. She said the venue took this kind of thing seriously and wanted to support the couple however they needed. The groom appeared at our table about 10 minutes later and asked if he could review what we'd put together. We showed him the shared folder on Mary's laptop and he sat down to read through everything. He scrolled through the timeline slowly, stopping to look at each photo and video. His face stayed calm, but I could see his jaw getting tighter as he read about each sabotage attempt. He spent extra time looking at the video of Sheila's mother in the wedding dress, and the photos of the duplicate tiara. When he finished reading, he closed the laptop and told us he and Sheila had already decided to talk to a lawyer about getting a restraining order. He said they couldn't live their married life constantly worried about what Sheila's mother might do next. His voice was steady and firm, like he'd already made peace with the decision. Sheila joined us a few minutes later, still in her wedding dress but with her shoes off. She sat down next to her husband and he showed her everything we'd documented. She scrolled through the folder and nodded as she read each entry. When she finished, she looked up at all of us and explained that she was done trying to manage her mother's behavior through family conversations and boundaries that Sheila's mother just ignored. She said she finally recognized that her mother's jealousy had gotten dangerous, and she needed actual legal protection. Her voice didn't shake when she talked about it. She sounded tired but also clear about what needed to happen. She said she wanted to protect her new marriage from future sabotage attempts before Sheila's mother could plan something even worse. We spent the next few minutes talking through the evidence we'd collected. Jenny brought up the fact that Sheila's mother tried to hit her own mother in front of multiple witnesses, including security staff and the event coordinator. That attempted physical violence made the case for a restraining order much stronger, according to what Iris had told us earlier. The grandmother sadly agreed that legal action was necessary at this point. She said she'd provide a written statement about the long history of attention-seeking behavior and boundary violations going back decades. She mentioned specific incidents from family holidays and events where Sheila's mother created drama to get attention. Her voice was heavy but determined when she said this was about protecting Sheila's future and any grandchildren who might come along. The groom thanked her and said they'd contact a family law attorney first thing after the honeymoon to start the restraining order process. The band starts their final set and guests begin filtering toward the exit with coats and purses in hand. Sheila and the groom position themselves near the main door and shake hands with every single person who walks past. I watch from a few feet away as an elderly couple stops to tell Sheila how beautiful the ceremony was and how they've never seen a bride look so happy. The woman has no idea that 3 hours ago we were yanking a tiara off someone's head in a hallway. A group of the groom's college friends comes through next, and they're all laughing about the speeches and the dancing. One guy mentions that this was the smoothest wedding he's ever attended with zero drama whatsoever. Sheila catches my eye over his shoulder, and we both have to work hard not to laugh at the irony. More guests file past with similar comments about the perfect day and the gorgeous venue and the touching vows. Each compliment feels like a small victory because it means we actually pulled this off without anyone knowing what happened behind the scenes. The last few stragglers head out around 11 and Sheila finally kicks off her heels right there in the lobby. The groom wraps his arm around her waist and they just stand there for a minute looking exhausted but genuinely happy. I head back to the bridal suite to start packing up Sheila's stuff since she'll need it for the honeymoon tomorrow. The room is a mess of makeup bags and hair products and discarded tissue paper from gifts. I'm folding her robe when I spot a piece of paper sticking out from under the couch cushion. I pull it out and my stomach drops when I recognize Sheila's mother's handwriting. It's the original sabotage checklist that Mary screenshotted earlier, the actual physical list with pen marks and crossed out items. Reading through it again makes my blood pressure spike, because seeing it in her actual handwriting makes it feel more real and more twisted. She wrote out each planned disaster in neat bullet points like she was making a grocery list. Switch flowers to black roses, check. Invite the ex-boyfriend, check. Replace sugar with salt in cake batter, check. Wear duplicate wedding dress to ceremony, check. I sit down on the couch still holding the paper and feel this wave of anger wash over me. This woman actually sat down and planned out multiple ways to destroy her own daughter's happiness. But then I look around at the empty champagne bottles and the scattered flower petals and the photos Valerie left on the side table. We caught every single thing on this list. We stopped her. Sheila got her perfect day despite everything her mother tried to do. I fold the checklist carefully and tuck it into the evidence folder we're building, because even though it makes me furious, I'm also grateful we found it in time. Mary pokes her head into the suite and tells me the grandmother wants to talk to all of us before everyone leaves. We gather in a small conference room where the grandmother is already seated with a notepad in front of her. She looks tired but determined as she explains that she's calling a family meeting for next week with Sheila's father and several other close relatives. Her voice is firm when she says they need to discuss as a family how they're going to handle Sheila's mother's behavior going forward. She makes it crystal clear that anyone who tries to make excuses for the sabotage or downplay what happened today will not be welcome in Sheila's life anymore. Several relatives who are still at the venue immediately speak up to say they support whatever boundaries Sheila wants to set. Sheila's father nods and says he should have stepped in years ago when Sheila's mother's jealousy first started affecting family events. The grandmother writes down names of people who will attend the meeting and people who will be providing written statements about Sheila's mother's history of attention-seeking behavior. She mentions specific incidents from past holidays and birthdays where Sheila's mother created drama to get attention. The meeting only lasts 15 minutes, but it feels significant because the family is finally acknowledging the pattern, instead of pretending everything is fine. We head back outside where Sheila and the groom are loading gifts into their car to take to the honeymoon suite. Most of the vendors have packed up and left, and the parking lot is nearly empty now. Sheila sees me walking over and breaks away from the car to meet me halfway. She pulls me aside near the garden entrance where it's quiet and private. Her voice is steady, but emotional when she tells me that today taught her who her real family is. She says it's the people who showed up to protect her, rather than the person who gave birth to her. I feel my throat get tight because I know how much it costs her to say that out loud. We hug for a long time and I can feel her shaking a little bit even though she's trying to hold it together. When we finally pull apart, she thanks me again for trusting my gut about the duffel bag and for organizing everyone to stop the sabotage. The groom calls over that they need to get going, and Sheila squeezes my hand one more time before walking back to the car. I stand there in the parking lot watching them drive away with their car decorated in streamers and cans. Sheila waves out the window and I wave back thinking about how she can finally celebrate without constantly looking over her shoulder. She's heading into her marriage surrounded by people who genuinely want her to be happy, and who prove today that they'll fight to protect that happiness no matter what.